Picture this: one of Shakespeare's most mysterious sonnets, hiding a biblical catastrophe that changed the course of human history forever. What if I told you that Sonnet 28 isn't just about sleepless nights and restless thoughts? What if it's actually a coded retelling of one of the Bible's darkest stories, the destruction of Sodom and the shocking events that followed? Today, we're going to dive deep into the Aramaic and Hebrew texts that reveal a connection most people have never seen before. We'll explore how the poet wove together themes of divine judgment, moral corruption, and the eternal battle between good and evil. This is not your typical literary analysis. We're about to uncover layers of meaning that connect Renaissance poetry to ancient mystical wisdom. The sources we'll examine today include the Aramaic and Hebrew Zohar Adash, the Hebrew book of Jasher, and centuries-old rabbinic commentaries that paint a disturbing picture of human nature. By the end of this video, you'll see the poet's words in a completely new light. You'll understand how the story of Lot and his daughters relate to our own choices between righteousness and corruption. And you'll discover why these ancient texts compare certain behaviors to leeches that consume without conscience. I'm Dr. Peter D. Matthews. Welcome to this lecture. Let's start by reading Shakespeare's Sonnet 28 and then break it down line by line through this biblical lens. How can I then return in happy plight, that am debarred the benefit of rest, when day's oppression is not eased by night, but day by night and night by day oppressed, and each, though enemies to either's reign, do in consent shake hands to torture me, the one by toil, the other to complain. How far I toil, still farther off from thee. I tell the day to please him, thou art bright, and dost him grace when clouds do blot the heaven. So flatter I the swart complexioned night, when sparkling stars twine not, thou guilest the heaven. But day doth daily draw my sorrows longer, and night doth nightly make grief's length seem stronger. The sonnet opens with themes of restlessness and judgment, much like the divine unrest that preceded Sodom's destruction. According to the Aramaic and Hebrew Zohar Dash, sections 109a through to 112a, the angels sent to destroy Sodom were in a state of divine authority and grace because they carried both power of destruction and the hope of redemption. This is the key to the opening verses of Zohar Dash 110a. And it reads, according to their deeds on account of human deeds, as they act, so he transforms them. This means if a malevolent demon acts only for good in the world, he is transformed by God to an angel of light. Just as God forgives us for our sin, he does so for angels too. Now we can understand the opening verses. How can I then return in happy plight, that am debarred the benefit of rest? For the demon is denied the benefit of rest, yet according to Zohar Adash, that soul can be restored. However, if they continue their role as malevolent demons, they will continue an eternity. when day's oppression is not eased by night, but day by night and night by day oppressed. Now we can understand it. The poet's opening lines about day and night being unable to bring peace or rest must be read in context to the Zoharic source documents. We must remember Sonnets 26 to 30 were drawn from Parashat Vayera in Zohar Hadash that relate to a vision by Rabbi Shimon where the world was darkened and the light was gone. We were overcome with darkness because the righteous, or the Lamed Vav, who underpin the world with prayer, praise, and meditation under God, were gone. This is our final opportunity to accept salvation and conquer the evil impulse. Or as the Midrash Rabbah tells us, we can let the evil impulse dominate us and drag us into sin, act upon act, until we rouse to serve his desires and face the day of judgment. The Hebrew text in the book of Jasher describes how Lot struggled with his conscience before the city's destruction. He knew something terrible was coming, yet he felt powerless to change the course of events. This internal conflict appears throughout Shakespeare's sonnets in the form of sleepless nights and troubled days. Now let's examine the connection to Lot's daughters and their shocking actions after escaping Sodom. The Babylonian Midrash, Bereshit Rabbah, provides a detailed commentary on what happened in that cave. After witnessing the complete destruction of their world, Lot's daughters made a decision that would echo through generations. They believed they were the last people on earth and needed to preserve humanity. But the text reveals something much darker about their motivations and methods. The Zohar specifically compares these daughters to leeches, creatures that attach themselves and drain life without remorse. The comparison is found in the mystical interpretation of Proverbs 30 verse 15, which speaks of leeches to daughters. These daughters cry, "Give, give," always taking, never satisfied, never acknowledging wrongdoing. The Hebrew sources describe how the daughters got their father drunk on consecutive nights. They used wine as a weapon to cloud his judgment and take advantage of his vulnerable state. The book of Jasher explains that they justified their actions by claiming they were saving humanity. But rabbinic commentaries reveal a deeper spiritual corruption at work. Like the woman described in Proverbs, they ate and wiped their mouths, claiming they had done nothing wrong. And each, though enemies to either's reign, do in consent shake hands to torture me. Speaking of torturing Lot, their father, basically in hell, the one by toil, the other to complain. This phrase appears in mystical texts as a symbol of moral blindness. It represents people who commit terrible acts but convince themselves they are justified. Shakespeare's Sonnet 28 captures this same theme of self-deception and moral confusion. The speaker in the poem struggles with day and night, unable to find peace or clarity. This mirrors the spiritual darkness that follows moral compromise. No matter how far I toil, it seems I am still farther off from thee. Thee is referring to El Shaddai, God. The elder daughter said to the younger daughter, "Our father is old," Genesis 19:31. For the evil impulse is referred to as old and foolish in Zohar Hadash, drawn from the verse, Better is a child that is poor and wise than a king that is old and foolish. Ecclesiastes 4:13. The ancient texts tell us that Lot's daughters each bore sons from these encounters. These children became the fathers of the Moabites and the Ammonites, nations that would later oppose Israel. The consequences of the cave rippled throughout history for generations. However, instead of being impregnated by evil through an evil act, God decided to intervene in that lineage. For the Moabite princess Ruth converted to Judaism and became the great-grandmother of King David, who bore King Solomon and 27 generations later to Jesus Christ. Now the final verses of the sonnet come together. For I tell the days to please him, referring to pleasing Christ. Thou art bright, and dost him grace when clouds do blot the heaven. In other words, snuff out evil. Where Zohar Adash 298b explained that Archangel Michael and Gabriel are the clouds across the sky. Shekinah departed for Abraham with Michael, leaving Gabriel and Raphael to go to Sodom that evening. And now this is turning before the destruction of Sodom. Babylonian Talmud, Bava Metzia 86b explains, Michael came to announce to Sarah that she was to give birth to a son. Raphael came to heal Abraham after his circumcision, and Gabriel went to overturn Sodom. Though we know there were two angels who went to Sodom, Gabriel and Raphael. Therefore, I believe it was after Raphael had healed Abraham. So flatter I the swart complexioned night, when sparkling stars. So it was a dark night, when sparkling stars twire not, or do not sparkle, reflecting upon the dream of Rabbi Shimon of a darkened world upon judgment. Guilest the heaven, or gilt the heaven. Although most scholars seem to think this was an error by the poet, and they change it to gildest, or wrapped with gold foil, and instead of the heaven, they write the even, E-V-E-N, which frankly doesn't make any sense at all. And they offer a wide range of explanations, from sexual fantasies to golden skies or golden showers. I'm not sure which. My goodness, I'm disgusted, to be honest. It is exactly as the poet intended. When sparkling stars twire not, thou guilest, guile, duplicity, deceptive, the heaven. It refers to the heavens that will reveal their guilt, and the earth will testify against them. Job 20 verse 27, meaning us. We will reveal the guilt of angels and demons that traverse the skies. What an incredible imagery. Parashat Hadashah 4:37 connects this story to the larger theme of divine judgment and human choice. It explains that we all face moments of decision throughout our lives. We can choose the path that leads to spiritual elevation, or the one that drags us down. The mystical source described two realms awaiting human souls after death. There's the Garden of Eden, where righteous souls experience eternal bliss and divine connection. And then there's the realm of spiritual darkness, where corrupted souls face eternal separation from divine light. The Zohar teaches that our choices in this world determine our destination in the world to come, the next world. Every action, every decision, every moment of moral choice is writing our eternal story. Lot's daughters made their choice in that cave, believing they were acting for the greater good. The hot fuzz metaphor becomes ironic. The good produces evil. But the Hebrew texts reveal they were driven by the same selfish desires that destroyed Sodom. They took what they wanted and convinced themselves it was righteous. The leech comparison becomes even more powerful when we understand its mystical meaning. Leeches attach to their host and drain blood without the host's awareness or consent. They represent spiritual parasitism. Oh, struggle with that word. Parasite, taking life force while giving nothing back. The daughters attached themselves to their father's weakness and drained his dignity. They used his love for them and his confused state to serve their own purposes. Shakespeare's sonnet expresses the same kind of spiritual vampirism in poetic form. The speaker describes being drained by sleepless nights and restless days. There's a sense of something feeding off his peace and consuming his rest. The ancient commentaries warn us about this pattern in our own lives. They teach that moral compromise always starts with small justifications. We convince ourselves that our questionable actions serve a higher purpose. We silence our conscience by claiming we had no choice or that others would do worse, such as the Russia-Ukraine war, though I don't often mention politics. But each compromise makes the next one easier until we lose our moral compass entirely. The Hebrew sources describe this process as spiritual leprosy, a gradual deadening of moral sensitivity, like physical leprosy. It starts small but eventually consumes the entire body. Lot's daughters experienced this spiritual numbing in the cave. Their trauma from witnessing Sodom's destruction mixed with pre-existing moral weakness. But day doth daily draw my sorrows longer, and night doth nightly make grief's length seem stronger. Returning to our original plight of the fallen, with the sorrow and grief of being dragged to hell by the evil impulse that traverses the sky looking for its next victim. The result was actions that shocked even the ancient world, which had much looser moral standards than us today. The mystical texts teach that redemption is always possible, but it requires genuine repentance. Genuine repentance means acknowledging the full weight of our actions without excuses. It means facing the damage we've caused and taking responsibility for healing it. The daughters never showed this kind of repentance. They continued to justify their actions and raise their sons without acknowledging wrongdoing. This is why their descendants, the Moabites and Ammonites, became enemies of God's people in later generations. The spiritual corruption they refused to address became a generational curse. Do we really want that for our lives? Shakespeare's sonnets hint at this same struggle between acknowledgement and denial. The speaker recognizes the troubled state but seems unable to find the path to peace. This reflects a spiritual limbo that so many people are in. It's resultant from unresolved moral conflicts. The ancient texts offer hope. through the concept of teshuva. Now, I've spoken about this many times, but I want to relay here it's not just repentance, but complete and utter return to righteousness. Teshuva requires brutal honesty about our failures and a genuine commitment to change. This is why it was recorded honestly in the Torah. They didn't leave it out. They didn't lie about it. They told us the truth. It's not enough to feel bad about our actions. We must actively work to become different people. The Zohar teaches that every soul has the capacity for complete transformation. Even the most corrupted person can achieve spiritual purity through sincere effort towards teshuva. But this transformation requires abandoning the leech-like behaviors that drain others. We must stop taking what doesn't belong to us and start giving back to the world. We must stop justifying harmful actions and start taking full responsibility. Most importantly, we must choose whether we want to spend eternity in the Garden of Eden or in spiritual darkness. The choice is made through thousands of small decisions throughout our lives. Each time we face a moral dilemma, we're choosing our eternal destination. The daughters in the cave made their choice. They chose immediate gratification over long-term righteousness. The consequences of that choice affected not only them, but countless future generations. This magnificent sonnet captures the weight of these eternal decisions in poetic language. Every sleepless night represents a soul wrestling with consequences of moral choices. Every restless day reflects the spiritual turmoil that follows compromise. The ancient wisdom teaches us that true peace only comes through alignment with God's divine will. When we choose righteousness, even when it's difficult, and I tell you it will be, we will experience spiritual rest. When we compromise our values for temporary gain, we lose our inner peace. So the next time you read Shakespeare's Sonnet 28, remember the deeper layers we've uncovered today. Think about the biblical catastrophe that destroyed Sodom and the moral choices that followed. Consider how Lot's daughters represented the leech-like behaviors that drains life from others. Remember that we all face similar moments of decisions throughout our lives. We must ask, how can I then return in happy plight? We can choose the path that leads to the Garden of Eden, or the one that drags us towards spiritual darkness. The Hebrew and Aramaic sources we've explored offer timeless wisdom about human nature and divine judgment. They remind us that our actions have eternal consequences beyond what we can see. If this analysis has opened your eyes to new connections between literature and ancient wisdom, please hit that like button. Share the video with anyone who might be interested in these deeper layers of poetry, theology, and philosophy. Leave a comment below telling me what other Shakespeare works you might be interested in, especially through a biblical lens. And don't forget to subscribe for more content that bridges the gap between classical literature and ancient spiritual texts. The choice between righteousness and corruption is before each of us every single day. Choose wisely. Your eternal destination depends on your choice today, tomorrow, and the next day.